like and subscribe. Pretty please. Police officers of Reddit, what are you thinking when you see cases like George Floyd? Horrified when you have someone in custody, you are responsible for their safety and well-being. Why don't we see police officers or departments come out and condemn things like this when they happen? I was on a police subreddit yesterday, and most people seemed to agree with you and stressing that this is less common than the media would have us believe. It was basically boiled down to, yeah, this is bad. The media jumps on it, and the police are not set up to fight a PR battle with the media. I understand that argument, but when so many people agree that what happened is wrong, wouldn't it be a good move to stand up and say, we do not condone this as an organization? It's a really bad look when they stay quiet, or as is the case most of time, back up the officer in question. It's like if there was a problem with mailmen stealing packages, I would expect the post office to fire them, have them arrested, and let the public know that it won't be tolerated. We see police unions support politicians for election, but we never see them come together to condemn this sort of thing. It's just a really bad look for all the good cops out there, and I wonder why they don't speak up more often. I have a degree in law enforcement and work in corrections in Minnesota. My thoughts are, fuck that guy. Nobody is taught to put their knee on a guy's neck and leave it there until he passes out and dies. He may as well have had his hands around the man's neck. If I were to go off the video evidence, the officer should be arrested for murder. Correction. All of them present should be arrested for murder. Since we are tapping into the police community here, can someone please explain what, if anything, the bystanders could have done to help George Floyd? Call 911 and report police brutality? In all seriousness, what is the preventative action here, since none of the police officers on the scene, 4 of which were physically restraining him, reacted to his being murdered right in front of them? Absolutely disgusted, ashamed, and horrified. The poor man said he couldn't breathe. He was cuffed and not resisting, so either pull him onto his side and allow him to breathe, or stand him up. You do not kneel on the neck, and if the detainee says they can't breathe, you believe them and make sure they can. If they are not resisting, put them on their side, or sitting/standing, anything to avoid positional asphyxiation. If resisting, there are still ways of restraining without kneeling on the neck or causing positional asphyxia. We do have a duty of care to those in our custody. A post I can finally answer. Based in Scotland, I'm a police officer with 5 years service, 2 of which I have been a part-time officer safety instructor. During this training, we go over a training subjects and handcuff techniques that we use to a T. This includes all safety aspects, including where to apply handcuffs, how tight they should be, ensuring the technique is done correctly, and that the subject is in a controlled but safe position. Positional asphyxia is a vital topic we cover, and it is reiterated time and time again that if a subject ends up on the ground, we never, and I reiterate again, never, place any sort of weight on them. Hell, even when sitting in the back of our cars, we watch them and ensure they can breathe and are in a comfortable position for transport. What these cops did was just plain stupid, disproportionate, and frankly an embarrassment to policing. I'd also use disgusting if I'm honest. I just hope that people know we are not like this. I worked in a place where the population was about 75% black. As a white cop, I very quickly learned a lot about being respectful and how to be tactful. Humor goes a long way, and it's very important not to give off any sign of being fearful. They can sense it. You get used to shouts of abuse as you drive by, and guys on the corner will try to provoke you by openly drinking beer. Is it illegal? Yes, but you learn to pick your battles. If you do ever need to stop someone and question them, you know that if you take too long, you will suddenly find yourself surrounded by an angry crowd who have no idea what you are asking. People in these areas are almost always reluctant to even be seen conversing with a cop out of fear of being seen as a snitch. It is true that if you do need to make an arrest, there will almost always be some level of resistance, which makes things very difficult, as once you have made the commitment to make the arrest, you have to go through with it. I'm not in any way making excuses for the cops in this particular video, but it isn't easy. However, the cop with his knee on the poor guy appears to be of the alpha male type of cop These guys are bullies by nature and very difficult to work with if you personally police to different standards. It's very difficult to intervene as a partner, as you will likely be ostracized. You take this route and your career is over, your social life is over, your marriage will have problems, as cop families are pretty close. Disgusted, especially by the frequency of these events. Glad that I work in a place where we are trained for years before we ever put on a uniform. That communication is our greatest tool. Sad to know that this is going to happen again and again. As a Baltimore resident, do you think it's just the sheer size of the force that lets these situations continue to happen? I don't envy the officers who have to essentially work in a war zone, but sometimes it feels like there's no light at the end of our tunnel for making the city safer and for ending police corruption and misconduct. This and the resulting low standards for admission to the police academy. I have a good friend that is a cop. We had a long discussion about good cops vs bad cops. I made the point that the bad cops seem to be able to get away with bad behavior all the time. They are never treated like everyone else, and police departments seem to bend over backwards to protect them. He said to the effect, well, it's a hard job, and we all need to know the other guy has our back. If we turn on each other like that, then it destroys the trust. My response was basically, if that's the truth, then there is no such thing as good cops. If good cops protect the bad ones, instead of going after them harder than they do other people, then they are worse than the crooked cops. If you're a cop, then just do your fucking job. It doesn't matter if the guy is wearing a badge or not. If he's a piece of shit criminal, then arrest that piece of shit and put his ass away. Saw a thing the other day that said, if there are 1,000 good cops and 10 bad cops, but the good cops keep quiet about the bad cops, there are really 1,010 bad cops. A lot of truth to that. I was a cop in the military, in the police academy. This was one of the things that taught us not to do, as it could crush the windpipe. The only time I was ever taught to use chokes and neck holds was in combat training for deployments. But when we got back, we always had to attend retraining classes to relearn what we can do stateside. It's amazing that time and time again, you see military saying this is exactly not what to do, but for some reason the civilian trainers seem to forget to teach the same. Would I rather be a POW to an American soldier vs American cop? I'll take soldier every time. I work for a US federal bureau, but am not a local police officer. All 4 cops need to go to jail. Derek Chauvin, the cop with the knee on George's neck, should have gone to jail long ago. The guy apparently has a history of doing this. This is his 3rd time in 15 years. Black people need to keep fighting, and white/Asian/Latino people need to support them. Justice for cases like this won't come easy, and it won't come soon. But if they keep fighting, I truly believe that one day, eventually, it will come. My former local precinct, they did nothing except eat pizza and hang out at the gas station across from where this happened. The whole precinct needs to be investigated. They were never bothered with doing their job. I'm British but live in America. There is such a different mindset to policing back home. In my experience, albeit I grew up in the countryside and lived in a quiet city, my friend is an officer today, and he was trained to use his words, not his weapons, on first instinct. He said you are supposed to police by consent. It's police service, not force after all. I know Hot Fuzz is a comedy, but when Simon Pegg tells Nick Frost his most important tool is his logbook, it's so true. I never feared the police when we were out and about back home. Probably because your average Bobby doesn't have a gun. In America, I'm not so sure I have that same confidence. Those that join the police to wield power and fear need to be rooted out. Those that stand by and say nothing of their colleagues who do wrong also need to be gone. As a son of a former police officer, my dad worked really hard and to be an honest cop. His department was full of racists. They didn't like him because he was a decent cop. They couldn't do anything wrong on front of him. We saw the news together, and I saw him wipe a tear, but tried really hard to hide it. I know he's sad, and I don't want to push him to talk about it, but we both know things like this is always gonna happen. And that is a really sad fact. I can't possibly understand why a human being would do something like this. At what point do citizens become empowered to do the right thing? As I watched this video, I got filled with so much hate, not just for the officer with the knee on his throat, but also for the cop standing there doing nothing, being a decent human being, and tell your partner to chill the fuck out. Not only for the reason that we are being recorded, but because it's the right thing to do. Going back to the empowered citizens, as I watched, I just felt like someone should have done something. And not just something stupid, but as one human to another, the right thing is death cold been avoided, and I know that if someone would have done something they too would have been arrested, or worse, for interfering with a police investigation. That's their fucking cop out, pun not intended. Thanks for taking the time to read my comment, and for replying. I did think about what most of you said before posting, but man, with that video evidence, I'm sure 30 days probation, or something not as drastic, would have been the result, and maybe a human life would have been saved, or it would have been much worse. They would have killed anyone who approached that cop. Sheriff's deputy here, and I must say that I'm disgusted by the unnecessary loss of life. There are moments that make me regret what I do, and this is one of them. I've met my share of racists wearing a badge, and I'm ready for a career change. The oath we take is to uphold the law and constitution. So for the officers on scene there that could have stepped in and prevented this, fuck you. One bad apple always ruins the bunch. Unfortunately, I pray for the George's family and that justice is served. The requirements to become a cop in the USA are laughably low, edit, but it's not a laughing matter. My uncle is a retired police officer, and I called him about this. He said that it's horrible that people like this exist. It has a negative impact on both the police community and the black community. It stirs up animosity between the two, and they end up not trusting. What if a person in the African American community needs to call the police, but don't trust them / fear them? Not all police officers are like this. Many are great people, but the growing number of cases is alarming. Another problem is that, because of police unions, officers who should face serious repercussions aren't. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe.